The clink of champagne glasses, the murmur of laughter, and the shimmer of sequins set the rhythm for the evening at the Golden Hearts Gala, the most prestigious charity event of the season in New York City. Everyone who was someone was there. Film directors, Grammy winners, Wall Street tycoons, reality TV stars whose faces lit up magazine covers, all swirling together in a perfect, dazzling storm of wealth, power, and glamour. Beneath the glow of crystal chandeliers, servers in crisp uniforms floated through the crowd like shadows, invisible to the sparkle and spectacle around them. One of them was Callie Monroe. She was 24, with soft chestnut hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun, and a face that might have been beautiful if not worn so thin by exhaustion and life's small, constant battles. Her uniform fit a little loosely around her frame, the black slacks just barely hiding the battered sneakers she wore instead of the expected polished flats. She was careful to keep her head down, moving briskly from table to table, refilling. Glasses, clearing plates, a ghost in a ballroom of kings. No one noticed Callie, and truth be told, she had gotten used to it. Once, not so long ago, Callie Monroe had dreamed of standing in rooms like this, but not as a shadow. She dreamed of the stage. When she was a little girl growing up in a tiny North Carolina town, her mother would lean against the kitchen counter, arms folded, listening to Callie sing with a proud, faraway smile. "Baby," her mother used to say, "you've got a voice that could stop the world spinning." Callie believed her. For a while. But life has a way of shoving dreams into the background. Bills piled up. Her mother got sick. Callie dropped out of music school halfway through her first year to work full-time. What once felt possible slowly turned into something foolish, a secret she folded up neatly inside herself and carried like an old love letter she didn't have the heart to throw away. Now, instead of microphones and spotlights, she carried heavy trays. Instead of applause, she got polite nods, or worse, no acknowledgement at all. But sometimes, when she was alone in the staff break room, scraping uneaten food off glittering plates, Callie would hum, just under her breath, just enough to remember she was still alive. That night at the Golden Hearts Gala, the tension in the air was thicker than the perfume clouding the ballroom. The host, a well-known TV producer named Darren Claymore, kept checking his watch and whispering anxiously to his assistant. The whispers rippled through the crowd. "Where's the headliner? Wasn't she supposed to perform by now?" The scheduled performer, a pop sensation with millions of followers, was missing. Her PR team sent a vague text about unforeseen circumstances. Rumors swirled, something about a last-minute trip to Paris, a broken contract, a scandal brewing. The guests grew restless, eyes narrowed over champagne flutes. Famous faces turned, toward the stage expectantly, then impatiently. This was supposed to be the highlight of the night, and now it was crashing fast. Callie, weaving through the crowd with an empty tray, felt the shift in the room like a sudden gust of wind. She paused for a moment near the edge of the ballroom, standing behind a massive pillar, half hidden. Her heart beat faster, though she couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the electricity in the air. Maybe it was the impossible, ridiculous thought that flitted through her mind like a reckless bird. What if? Darren Claymore, sweating through his tuxedo, took the mic on stage. He forced a wide, brittle smile. "Well, folks," he joked awkwardly, "looks like our main act hit some technical difficulties." A few scattered chuckles, mostly strained. "But hey, we're a room full of stars, right? Anyone here feel like stepping up and saving the night?" More laughter, this time more genuine, fueled by the open bar. But no. One moved. Of course not. The stars weren't about to risk looking foolish, not in front of cameras, not among their peers. No one stepped forward. The silence stretched long and uncomfortable, and that's when Callie heard it. The small, shaky voice that shocked even her own ears. I can try. It took her a second to realize it had come from her. Her tray clattered slightly as her hands trembled, heads turned, some curious, some amused. The event planner, desperation clear on his face, looked toward the source of the voice. His eyes landed on Callie. He hesitated for just a second, but desperation wins over pride every time. He gave a slight nod. A fine, whatever, just fill the silence kind of nod. Callie froze. Part of her screamed to run. She wasn't ready. She wasn't good enough. But another part, that small, stubborn ember deep inside her, the one that had refused to die through, years of hard work and harder disappointments, pushed her forward. She placed her tray down on a table. She wiped her sweaty palms on the sides of her pants, and she walked, one step at a time, toward the stage. The crowd parted slightly, ripple of whispers and raised eyebrows following her like a cloak. Who is she? Is this some planned thing? Maybe she's a TikTok singer? Callie climbed the 3 small steps to the stage, feeling like each one might crack under her weight. She blinked under the spotlight, feeling the intense heat and the 1,000 curious eyes drilling into her. The pianist looked at her, eyebrows raised, waiting. Callie leaned toward him and whispered, "Something simple, a ballad, slow tempo." He nodded once, fingers flexing over the keys. Callie took a deep breath. Her hands shook, her throat felt dry, but she remembered her mother's voice again, warm and strong. "If you're scared, baby, sing through it. Let the fear ride the song." She closed her eyes, and as the first soft piano notes drifted into the room, Callie Monroe opened her mouth to sing. The first soft notes of the piano unfurled into the golden air of the ballroom, delicate as spun glass. Callie Monroe stood frozen under the hot stage lights, feeling every molecule in her body vibrate with nerves. Her fingers gripped, the microphone so tightly that her knuckles went white. The cold metal pressed into her palm, grounding her. She squeezed her eyes shut for just 1 second. 1 heartbeat. 1 breath. Let the fear ride the song, her mother had told her. Let it carry you, not stop you. Callie opened her eyes. She took another breath, deeper this time, and stepped forward. The room, glittering and vast, blurred at the edges. All she could see clearly was the baby grand piano, the gentle smile of the pianist, and the endless space before her, begging to be filled. And so she sang. At first, her voice was a fragile thing, a thread pulled too tight. The first few notes wobbled, thin and trembling. A few guests exchanged polite, skeptical glances. A smothered chuckle floated from somewhere near the back, but Callie didn't run. She didn't stop. She pushed past the lump in her throat, past the walls she'd built around herself all these years. The second line came out stronger, richer, fuller, and by the third, something miraculous happened. Her voice found itself. It wasn't flashy or polished like a pop star's. It didn't have the cold perfection of a studio recording. No, it was something far rarer. It was raw. It was real. It was achingly human. It was the sound of every heartbreak she had carried, every dream she had buried, every night she had spent wiping down countertops and wondering if this, survival, was all life would ever offer her. It was the sound of hope stitched with sorrow, and it caught the room like a sudden winter gust. One by one, the conversations died away. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. Heads turned. Somewhere near the front, a woman in a sequined dress gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth. A man, some executive Callie didn't recognize, leaned forward in his chair, his brow furrowing as if seeing something he couldn't quite believe. The pianist, sensing the shift, softened his playing, letting Callie's voice rise and fall like a tide. And Callie, she stopped being afraid. Somewhere deep inside her, the scared girl who had hidden her dreams under layers of practicality and tiredness, she stood up. Callie let the music carry her. She sang of lost loves and old promises, of hometowns too small to contain big dreams, of mothers who believed in you when no one else did. The lyrics, simple, heartfelt, poured out of her like a river finally breaking its dam. Flashback, woven inside the song for a moment, Callie wasn't on stage anymore. She was 12 years old, standing barefoot on the creaky porch of her childhood home, the sunset washing her world in gold. Her mother, a strong woman with laugh lines and work-roughened hands, sat in a rocking chair, clapping along as Callie belted out an old folk song. "You're a star, baby," her mother whispered, pride thick in her voice. "You just shine your light. Don't worry if folks can't see it right away." Callie sang harder, tears burning the back of her throat. She missed her mom so badly it was like a physical ache, a hollow place inside her that never quite healed. And tonight, it felt like she was singing to her. "I'm still shining, Mama," she thought fiercely. "I didn't let the world put me out." When the final note of the song drifted into silence, it hung there, suspended, like a prayer unanswered. For a beat, maybe two, the ballroom was utterly still. You could have heard a pin drop. Callie's chest heaved with the effort of holding back tears. She blinked against the stage lights, heart pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Had she failed? Had she made a fool of herself in front of New York's finest? 1,000 insecurities swarmed her brain at once, screaming for attention. She almost turned to run, and then it started. One slow clap, somewhere near the center of the room. Callie squinted, her vision swimming, and saw an older man, distinguished with silver hair and watery blue eyes, rising to his feet, clapping solemnly. Another clap, another, then another. A ripple, like stones dropped into a still pond. Suddenly, it wasn't just polite applause. It wasn't pity. It was genuine, thunderous, stand-up-and-cheer kind of applause. Chairs scraped back as the entire room rose to its feet. Hundreds of faces, some wet with unexpected tears, smiling, clapping, shouting their approval. Callie stood, there shell-shocked as waves of sound crashed over her. People were cheering her. Her, not because she was famous, not because she was part of the show, but because she had opened her soul to them, and they had felt it. She pressed a hand to her chest, laughing a little through the tears spilling over. The pianist grinned at her, giving her a thumbs up before melting away into the shadows. The event organizer, Darren Claymore, scrambled onto the stage, shaking his head in disbelief. He pulled Callie gently toward the mic again. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, grinning like he had just found a diamond in a mud puddle, "this right here is why you never underestimate a dark horse." The crowd roared even louder. Darren leaned toward Callie and whispered, out of range of the mic, "Stay right there, kid. Your life's about to change." As Callie stepped down from the stage, hands reached out to her, clapping her on the back, shaking her hand, offering words she barely caught. Incredible. Goosebumps. "You're going places, sweetheart." She moved through the crowd like someone in a dream. Near the edge of the ballroom, a woman in a sharp navy pantsuit, some kind of talent agent, if the glossy business cards she thrust into. Callie's hand were anything to go by, leaned in close and whispered, "Call me first thing tomorrow. We need to talk contracts." A magazine editor offered to feature her. A Broadway scout slipped her a card, a famous pop singer, the kind whose face Callie had seen on billboards, gave her a hug and murmured, "Never stop singing, honey. You're what this industry's missing." But it wasn't the cards, or the compliments, or the sudden dazzling possibilities that made Callie's throat tighten the most. It was the older woman who approached quietly, almost shyly. She wore a simple, Black dress, her silver hair pulled back into a low bun. She didn't have a business card. She wasn't a celebrity. She just held out her hand and said, voice trembling, "You made me remember my daughter tonight. She passed 3 years ago. She used to sing like that. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you for bringing her back to me, even just for a song." And in that moment, Callie understood something deep and irrevocable. She hadn't just sung a song. She hadn't just saved a gala. She had touched people's hearts. She had made them feel something they hadn't even realized. They were missing, and maybe, just maybe, that was the real dream all along. Not the fame. Not the lights. Just this. Connection. As Callie slipped out into the cool New York night hours later, the stars stretched bright and cold above the city skyline. She walked barefoot, her battered sneakers slung over her shoulder. The concrete was rough beneath her toes, but she didn't care. She smiled up at the heavens, feeling lighter than she had in years. "I did it, Mama," she whispered into the night. And somehow, deep inside, she knew her mother heard her. The New York air was crisp, the kind that carried a bite even under the glimmer of 1,000 city lights. Callie Monroe stood outside the gala hall, shoes in her hand, heart hammering like a drum against her ribs. The night had changed her. Somehow, without warning, the safe, small life she had wrapped around herself had torn open, and something wild, bright, and terrifying had rushed in. Opportunities, business cards, promises, they filled her pockets. But the real treasure was the feeling blooming inside her chest, stubborn and alive. Hope. She hadn't felt that in years. The next morning, Callie sat cross-legged on her small studio apartment floor, a steaming cup of coffee between her hands. Sunlight streamed through the cracked blinds, painting stripes across the hardwood. Business cards littered the table. "Call us. You have something special." "Lunch meeting? Let's talk about next steps." It didn't feel real. Her. Callie Monroe, the girl who scrubbed dishes until her hands bled, who had said maybe next year to her dreams so many times she stopped believing the years would ever change. Now everything had changed. Still in her pajamas, Callie picked up her phone and stared at the screen. No missed calls, no texts. Strange how the world could turn upside down and still feel so eerily quiet the next day. Her thumb hovered over the number on one of the glossy cards. Claire Danvers Talent Agency. One call, one brave step. She hesitated, her stomach flipping. What if they don't mean it? What if they were just being nice? The doubts, old, familiar, clawed their way back. She shut her eyes, clutching the phone so hard her fingers ached. Then she remembered the woman from the gala, the one who had thanked her for bringing her daughter back for one song. That memory lit something fierce in her. Callie opened her eyes, dialed the number, and hit call before she could second-guess herself. The phone rang twice before a crisp, professional voice answered. "Claire Danvers Agency, this is Monica speaking." Callie cleared her throat. "Hi, this is Callie Monroe. I, sang at the Claymore Gala last night. Claire gave me her card. Yes." The woman on the line practically exploded with energy. "We've been waiting for you to call." The next few minutes blurred into a whirlwind. A meeting scheduled for that afternoon. Talks about showcases, small gigs, vocal coaching, an entire team ready to help her polish the raw diamond they'd seen shine last night. When Callie hung up, her hands were shaking. She stared at the ceiling, laughter bubbling up from somewhere deep and startled. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't dreaming. This was real. 2 months later, the music industry moved fast like a river in spring thaw, wild, dangerous, impossible to predict. Callie struggled to keep her head above water. She worked double shifts at the diner to pay for new headshots and traveled to auditions. She raced between meetings, showcases, open mics, her days blurred into sleepless nights filled with sore feet, raw vocal cords, and heart-rattling nerves. More than once, she found herself crying on the subway ride home, from exhaustion, from fear, from sheer overwhelm. But she never quit. Every time she thought about giving up, she remembered the way the room had risen to its feet for her that night. She remembered the woman who saw her daughter in Callie's voice. She remembered the girl on the porch, singing for the sunset, and a mother who believed. And she kept going. One evening, backstage at a small downtown venue. The room was cramped, the walls scrawled with decades of names and dreams. Callie paced in the tiny green room, knees shaking, palms sweaty. Tonight wasn't just another open mic. A big-name producer was rumored to be in the audience, someone who could open doors Callie had only ever pressed her face against from the outside. As she waited, she caught her reflection in the cracked mirror. For the first time, she didn't just see the tired waitress or the scared girl. She saw an artist. She saw a fighter. Callie leaned closer to the glass and whispered, "You deserve to be here." It wasn't a scream. It wasn't even a shout. It was a promise. When they called her name, she walked onto the tiny stage, nerves buzzing under her skin. But something had changed since that first night at the gala. Now, fear didn't choke her. It fueled her. It sharpened her. It reminded her she was alive. The room quieted as she began to sing. This time, her voice didn't tremble. It soared. She sang about second chances and broken dreams, about clawing your way back to the light when the darkness thought it had swallowed you whole. By the time she finished, the silence that fell over the room was electric. No one clapped. At first, they just stared, wide-eyed, stunned, as if she had peeled open her chest and shown them the very shape of her heart. And then, slowly the applause began. Soft, then louder, then a tidal wave. Somewhere in the crowd she spotted Claire Danvers beaming and nodding, mouthing the words, "You're ready." A week later, Callie stood at the threshold of a recording studio. Everything smelled like coffee and old leather and dreams. She turned slowly in a circle, taking it all in. The velvet-lined recording booth, the glint of gold records on the walls, the quiet hum of possibility. Claire was there, flipping through papers with the casual calm of someone who had seen dozens of hopefuls walk through these doors. But when she looked up and caught Callie's eye, her face softened. "You're different," she said simply. Callie blinked. "How?" Claire smiled. "You've got a real story to tell. And you're not afraid to tell it ugly, messy, true." Callie swallowed hard, emotion rising in her throat. This wasn't about slick packaging or auto-tuned perfection. It was about truth. It was about heart. The first time she heard her own voice played back through the studio monitors, Callie cried. Not because it was flawless. It wasn't. Not because it was perfect. It never would be. But because it was hers. Every crack, every tremor, every raw, aching note. It was real. It was enough. 6 months later, Callie Monroe's debut single-hit streaming platforms. No fancy rollout. No massive marketing machine. Just a song. Simple. Stripped down. About hope and heartbreak. About surviving. At first, it trickled out quietly. A few hundred plays, then a few thousand. And then, something caught fire. People shared it, talked about it, wrote about how it made them pull over on highways because they couldn't stop crying. It wasn't a chart topper. It didn't break records, but it broke hearts and healed them. And for Callie, that was more than enough. The biggest moment came quietly. No flashing cameras, no screaming fans, just Callie, sitting alone on the same battered couch in her tiny apartment, when her phone buzzed. A message from someone she didn't know. Your song saved my life tonight. Thank you. Callie stared at the screen, tears blurring the letters. She thought of every night she had almost given up. Every audition, where she'd been told no. Every diner shift where she felt invisible, and she whispered into the stillness, it was all worth it. Callie didn't become a pop star overnight. She didn't wake up to mansions or red carpets. Her journey was slower, richer, a path paved. With real stories and real connections, she sang at festivals, small clubs, benefit concerts. She sang to packed stadiums and to coffee shops with 5 people. She kept singing because Callie Monroe understood something most people never did. It wasn't about being famous. It was about being heard, and somewhere, every night, someone, some broken-hearted stranger, some tired soul who thought they were alone, heard her voice cutting through the dark and realized they weren't alone after all.